Whoops, sorry. I'm navigating two screens and all of a sudden I lost you guys. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask if everybody could put if you could just sign into the chat. If you are able to do that, we'll use our chat as our official attendance sheet. I know it's I'm going off mark, not doing a roll call. Teresa's looking at me. So if you could sign into chat, that would be great. We'll have that as a record. And without further ado, we'll get started. I'd just like to remind us, unless we're driving or have a situation like Lori has with her camera, if we could keep our Zoom cameras on, that would be much appreciated. As we get started, do we have any declaration of conflicts that we need to disclose? Okay. Hearing none. Do we have any public comment? Okay. While we're on here, I would like to welcome, I was going to do it later, but I'd like to do it now, John. I'd like to welcome Chris Branch. Chris is joining us as Okanagan County Commissioner and determining if he might be one of our newest board members. So Chris, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
We appreciate it. And we also have Emilio Vela. He'll be on later. In terms of also adding to our board, it'll be in our governance committee section. Okay. All right, without further ado, we'll get started. So I'd like approval of consent agenda.
This is Carlene. I move to approve.
Okay.
Manuel, I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Carlene and Manuel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Look at us. Just a little bit ahead of time, John. 2:10. Here we go. So John, if you could share your updates with us, please.
And Mariah is gonna share the screen, so I'll give her 1 minute to get on screen. And Linda said she was gonna keep us on task and keep us ahead of schedule, so we're gonna have to hold her to that today. Mariah, you are sharing it in the there you go. Perfect. So I get a chance to give a few updates on the work going on organizationally at Thriving Together NCW. But before I jump into that, I get the honor and privilege to call out a few staff members, maybe embarrass them a little bit in front of the governing board of some of the recent accomplishments that have been occurring in our organization. So Mariah, if you want to go to the next slide. First, I want to give a shout out to Wendy Bresney, our Director of Clinical Integration. She is right in the middle of the screen for me, so she's like front and center. At the Washington State Rural Health Association conference this last week, she was awarded the Mary Selecki Friend of Rural Health Award. So this is really an award that calls out someone in public health and community-based organizations, or those really partner organizations associated with rural health that have been a strong advocate across our state. She got the opportunity to get awarded at the conference, and honestly, she deserves this. I don't have to say honestly, but she deserves this. Wendy has been out there advocating in the work she's done. What she's done in telehealth has been amazing. What she's doing with workforce development has been amazing. So I just wanted to take a moment to really call out and shout out to Wendy. The next is a quick shout out to Joey, who got awarded the Champion of Public Health in his role in recovery and addiction services. I mean, Joey is starting to become a a known celebrity figure across our state, and maybe more in the work that he's really been doing around building out a recovery coach community and really leaning into that advocacy work is just amazing. So again, need to give a shout out to him. In honesty, every place I go, the partnerships we see in North Central Washington between law enforcement and people with lived experience, SUD and behavioral health providers and people with lived experience, in a lot of ways is pretty phenomenal and amazing. And I really give a lot of credit to Joey, the way Joey goes out and shares the story of people with lived experience, how he's engaged and is actively involved in the recovery community and bringing partners and individuals in the recovery community up to be part of this work has really made our region a model for recovery services across the states, most likely across the nation as well. So again, just want to give a shout out to Joey, who received the Champion of Public Health Award. Next slide. And really all I can say is, you know, this is just the quality of staff we have on our team. Everyone is amazing, and I'm lucky to be able to be an executive director to this team and be able to continue to highlight the work that is going on. Few updates on the statewide level that I want to share. Keeping the good news going, but maybe in a less exciting way. The Washington State Healthcare Authority got their health-related social needs infrastructure protocol approved as part of the Medicaid waiver. This is the first step in getting protocols approved. This helps provide capacity dollars to build out our community-based care coordination and social care network in our region and across the state. So this will be the first opportunity where we have some more concrete next steps. We're also in development with the Healthcare Authority and almost to the final steps of finishing an initial contract amendment that includes funding for the health-related social needs infrastructure part of money. So pretty soon here, we'll actually be moving into the contracting space for this work as well. I'm going to be bringing this, when I get that contract, I'll bring it to the Finance Committee for review and confirming what needs approval and doesn't need approval for the board is amendment. So I'm not for sure what this is all going to look like. What the state is doing is they are continuing to extend out the original waiver contract, and we're going to be doing this work through amendments in the original waiver contract. Keeping that train going, we are in development with the Washington State Healthcare Authority to create a readiness assessment for community hubs, or really building out our social care networks, which will then lead to us tapping into funding for the health-related social needs service funding pool. I probably, and I will try again to share some of these names and acronyms out to the board by email as well, because I know we've said them before, but I know kind of hearing and seeing what they all mean, we'll also work to get this out as well. But what, in summary, it all really means is that we're getting one step closer to actually getting the funding to do the Medicaid transfer. The last thing, and soon to come, is this other second major part of the waiver is really focused on the reentry population. And so in June, the state will be collecting letters of interest from jails and prisons who want to start getting engaged in the reentry work. June is the first round that letters of interest can be submitted. November is the second round that can be done. And so we've started conversations with our local, we started specifically with Chelan County, but we're also going to be reaching out to Grant and Okanagan County to see what we can do to support them in getting letters of interest submitted for funding to do the reentry portion of this work. It's predominantly going to be driven through the criminal justice facilities. And so we want to be active partners in supporting the sure our criminal justice facilities can be part of that. Talking to the Healthcare Authority, what they expect is actually to see state prisons be in that first round because they're the ones that they've been communicating with the most likely to be able to submit. So my goal would be at a minimum to get a number of our jails to be able to submit by the second round. If we get them by June, and we surprise the healthcare authority, I would be completely happy with that. If not, I really want to make sure that they can be part of this process and these discussions. If you go to the next, oh, and then, sorry, the next thing I just want to shout out to is this last month, the EDs and community-based care coordination hub staff got together over at CTAC to really start looking and continue planning on how we can align the work we're doing across the 9 regions and to support the work that we're doing locally. So there'll be more information to come in the future, but I just wanted to shout that out as well. Next slide. Few just updates on contracting and grants writing, just to keep the board involved. So we did sign the Career Connect Washington contract, which was around $249,000 to get that work started. That just started in February. Wendy is working in partnership with Big Bend Community College and Wenatchee Valley College, and we are actually in the works of getting those agreements developed and signed at this point in time. Joey, let me know the North Central Washington Behavioral Health Advisory Board approved a submission we had for $40,000 a year for 3 years to support the Narcan vending machine project, which is perfect. This comes out of state substance abuse block grant and state mental health block grant dollars. We've had funding for the last 2 years through this funding source. Caroline has been a strong partner, who is the local behavioral health administrative supportive organization in our region, who's also been funding and investing in this work as well. And so this really will just ensure that we have funding to support those Narcan vending machines for the next 3 years. Due April 29th. I think I got this date correct, Wendy, but you made me question it when you asked earlier. We will be submitting the USDA distance learning and telemedicine grant. We've been giving you guys a little bit of an update about that over the course of the last few months. And this will be really focused on capital expenditures to support our partners in the region on telehealth work and needs. What we are looking at, this current projection, is that the grant we would submit for is about $1 million. We do have to provide a 15% match for that, which would be $150,000. We have that in our budget as part of the funds we allocated for telehealth services. And so we are set for that. We are also reaching out to the Department of Commerce to see, we've heard from a few partners, they may have matching funds available that we can tap into as well. And lastly, we've been talking with Grand Columbia Health Alliance, Advanced Northwest, and Family Health Centers about an upcoming HRSA RCorp grant that is due in May. And we just had a planning meeting between the 4 of our agencies this morning to look at who could potentially take on lead for writing that application as a consortium of partners in this work. They're requesting that Thriving Together take the lead on the grant writing and be the lead applicant for the region. We've been working in partnership with Clifton Larson Allen. So Sarah's team, they have a Department of Grant Writers in that shop that we've had a contract to support doing some of our work. And so Denise from CLA is planning to support the grant writing portion of this work. And then our group of 4 agencies is going to get together to start piecing together the outline of the application, with Thriving Together being the lead applicant. Next slide. A few organizational updates, and I have to give a shout out because Mariah told me all of my ED slide pictures were out of date and for winter. And now that I'm talking about organizational updates, I feel like the picture she chose for this is actually perfect because we're talking about growing our organization a little bit. And she had a slide of plants growing. And so I've been working with our executive committee. I think I've shared a few updates here and there with the board about looking at our organizational structure and areas of growth we wanted to go with our organization. And so we are in the process, we're really in place to post 2 positions or coming to the completion of posting 2 positions for our organization. As an FYI, we talked about some of this also at the board retreat last fall, and we did budget 2 positions, new positions in the budget this year when that was approved in December. And so the first one we're really closest to getting posted is a tribal engagement and community empowerment manager position. And so this position would really be at our organization, ensuring that we're maintaining and building relations with our tribal partners, ensuring that everyone within our organization is also looking at how we do work in our different projects to ensure that it is taking into account how we engage our tribal partners in our work as well. So both supporting some of our external engagement as well as our internal involvement, making sure that we are all adhering to what we really want to do is to be a good partner with the tribes, as well as really leaning into that our second priority of how we are really building belonging and civic muscle into our region and into our organization's work as well. So we will be, and we are planning to be on the Colville Health and Human Services Committee meeting on April 15th to present and give them an opportunity to provide input on this position as well. And just with good timing, as an FYI, as part of the USDA telehealth grant, we also need to have a tribal resolution for that grant when we submit it. And Ernie Rasmussen from Bigfoot Communications for the Colville tribes recommended that we present that resolution at the April 15th HHS committee meeting. He's been working with us to get that developed. And so we'll be able to go and present both those things to the HHS committee at that time. Next, we're going to be, and we're in the process of developing a VP or director of operations, really to support managing operational staff, supporting contracting, compliance, and reporting, and focused on day-to-day operations. What I'm really finding is, as I'm starting to grow and build into this role, I'm really spending a lot more time at the state level, spending a lot more time out there with external partners. And in the past, I had filled that role in deputy director and providing some of that day-to-day support. And now I'm really getting to a point where that needs to be built back into our organization. And so we are going to be finalizing and getting that position posted in conjunction with conversations with the executive committee, Carrie through HR, and the team. We're actually really looking at breaking management positions into 2 roles. And so we would also be looking at posting a VP or director of programs as well that would be specifically overseeing all of our programmatic staff and the strategy on our programs and community engagement. And then the operations person would really predominantly be focusing on contracting, our compliance, and our operational staff. And then the last position we are looking at potentially considering is an executive assistant position. And this was based on conversations with the executive committee and looking at additional support or roles and functions I could use and the board could use around governance and ED support. So more to come on that. What I would really say in that section is we have 2 positions we're really pretty close to posting, rolling with. We have 2 additional positions that we're working out a little bit more of those details. The hope would be is we have a pretty good plan and picture in place in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And I know we won't have a board meeting by then, but from what we can finalize, I will share back out the details with the board by email just to keep you all informed in the process. Next slide. Few upcoming dates or past dates I just want to share with the board. One, shout out to Veronica and Mariah. We had a really great joint stewardship council and shared measurement task force meeting last Friday. We had a presentation from Imagine Fox Cities, really sharing the work that was going on around their rollout of the Wellbeing survey and community dialogues. we had a great opportunity for both the Stewardship Council and Shared Measurement Task Force to start looking at how this work really aligns with both of those groups and ask questions. Really set for that last bullet of May 1st, we're going to be rolling out the Wellbeing Survey across North Central Washington. And May 1st is really, I should say, that initial start date, but we're going to be continuing engagement over the course of May through August to ensure that we are hitting every region we can in our 4-county region. Other quick updates starting this month. We did sign a contract with Lodestar Partners, who is going to be our advocacy lobbying firm. And I'm meeting with Blake Baldwin this week. We have gone through, based off the last board meeting, we had reviewed to find if there were any other advocacy firms in North Central Washington. We weren't able to find any. After talking to the finance committee, they agreed that we could progress forward with the contract. And so we will be starting to enter into that work as of this week. April 14th, as part of community-based care coordination work and the continuation of that, we're actually going to have Vision Link, which is a care coordination platform out here in conjunction with Action Health Partners and Advanced Northwest to really look at, again, supporting some of the build out of care coordination work that is occurring in our region. Caroline is leading that effort for us, and we will probably have more information really to come at later date, but just wanted to give you guys a heads up. Through some of the funding we've had and through future funding, we're really going to be, one of the things we are going to be supporting is care coordination platform build and care coordination platform maintenance as part of the waiver. And so wanting to make sure you guys are aware of that. And I already shared the April 15th Colville HHS committee meeting. Next slide. I think the only other well, actually, I'll jump into this and then I have one other update. One other thing we are looking at doing and building out, we've been in conversations with North 40, the video production company, as Linda told me, not North 40, the agricultural and farm supplies store, to look at building a recovery coach docu-series. And so they've done a number of docu-series in partnership with other agencies. And so they have actually connected with us originally, and Joey Morgan and I have been talking to them over the last month and a half about looking at what we could do to build out a docu-series about the work that has been going on in our region around the recovery coach efforts, the recovery coalition efforts, our engagement and our partnership, again, with law enforcement and the unique things that we've done in North Central Washington, really with the ultimate goal of raising awareness of the work we've done, helping spread that work across the state and across the nation to support that role and focus of advocacy work. And as they say, really encouraging people to change mindsets, which saves lives. And so we are in the process of working out some of those details, working out the methods and the collections on the date. We're looking at about a 9 to 12 month process of start to end of the video production. We will be sharing the detailed scope of work with the finance committee so that they have the ability to ask questions to see what would be next steps to proceed forward. The cost for the docu-series would be $240,000 to $250,000. So it's not a small amount of funds. We've been calling around and getting quotes and estimates for other agencies to get a sense if this is a reasonable price for it. And generally what we're getting is yes, this is what we would be looking for no matter where we were to go to develop a docu-series. We're also exploring and looking at if there are other funding sources that would be out there that would be interested in supporting or funding this kind of work, to see if we could get additional funding backing to build this docu-series out. I told Joey to share a few tidbits about this as well, so I'm going to ask him if there's anything else we'd want to share.
Yeah, you covered most of what I would have shared. I would also just say that having the ability to share some of those personal stories, you know, when I think of like my own personal story and working at Pacific Aerospace, you know, just in a job that there wasn't a lot of opportunity to, we created a coalition to spread awareness about recovery and mental health. And that coalition introduced me to Thriving Together at the time, and I've been able to watch because it's happening on not just in our organization, but other organizations are seeing the value in this lived experience role being embedded in an organization that does any work around behavioral health or mental health. And I was the first recovery coach that was hired by an organization in this region, and now we've trained, you know, over a few hundred of them. There's 70 almost employed across our 4-county region, embedded in different organizations, and each county has a champion that has been a part of that whole process, like I was, that these guys want to follow around, do a little short section on their personal story of addiction and where it led them and where they are today and why they want to be an advocate. We have 2 of these champions sit on the local boards of health, one in Grant County, and I sit on the one here in Chelan Douglas. Okanagan County has a really great community champion that has been a part of the coalition since the very beginning, helped really form a lot of the Recovery Navigator program work regionally, as she was a manager early on in that work. And I just see the opportunity to bring so much hope, not only to family members, but other rural communities that are looking around their community with not a lot of hope on what do we do about this. And we've found some successful programs that work, including our reentry program, the emergency department recovery coach program, the Narcan vending machine work. We're starting to tiptoe into some prevention work into schools, but there is, even it doesn't feel like there's a lot you can do. We've been able to show that there is a lot that can be done. And I think it started with Thriving Together, going outside of the box and hiring somebody with lived experience that at the time was probably a very risky decision process that they had to go through. And just, you know, being able to put it into a documentary so I wouldn't have to travel as much and talk about what we do. We can share it with you know, one of the things I see is this could be, we could do, they want to do screenplays at colleges and different film festivals, and just a great way to get this information out to a large audience. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about any of it, we're in the somewhat early stages of it, and so would love to hear feedback, whether it's today or during this process.
And really, after that, that is all I had for the executive director update. So does anyone have any questions for Joey that are top of mind, or do you have any questions on anything that I shared or updated you all on today? All right. In the absence of questions, I'm turning it back to Linda.
All right. Thank you, Joey, for sharing your story. I can't wait till the documentary comes out and we can spread the great work that you've been doing and support. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Finance Committee investment presentation.
And
Sarah,
I'm turning it to Sarah. Oh yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so today we have Jamie and Michael here. Jamie is your guys's finance advisor, and Michael is your guys's trader. And so they're going to come in today and present on how the portfolio is done and how and what it looks like in the next few months. John, I don't know how to let them in the meeting.
I think I'm in the
They
meeting.
are, they're there. I hear Jamie and I see
Oh, great.
Michael.
I'm here.
Jamie,
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, no
jump
worries.
in.
And Eric is
Oh,
also
sorry.
here.
Oh,
Share that they also did a detailed presentation for the finance committee, or Jamie was able to. I know Michael wasn't able to attend. So the finance committee has also gotten a much more detailed presentation than what you'll see today.
Michael, did you want to just share the report that you had?
Sure. Jamie and I worked on a summary of your investments as of the end of March. So
Want me to share it or do you want to share it?
what I'll do here is share my screen. And if I can find exactly how to do that. Let's see. Oh, here we are. It's a big green button right there. Let's see. Okay. So I believe everybody can see that. And as always, I'm on the Bloomberg screen there.
There you go.
So if everybody could see that.
Yeah.
And pretty sure there's a way for me to expand that, but let's see. I think I can expand this.
Maybe at the top in the far right, where it says view, maybe.
Apologize for the delay here, but I think everybody can see that. Is that clear?
Yes, we can see it, Michael. And if you need me to share anything, I do have this on my end as well. So, but
Okay.
we can see it on your end. So thank you.
Okay. So I'll skip right to the good part here. If we page down, let's see. We can get right to the schedule investment. So as of the end of March, now the actual quarter end date did end on a weekend. So we ran this as of the closest date we could get to, which was Friday. And as you can see, the total investments here are a little just below $18.5 million. This is current pricing. This shows a nice way of displaying how you see the various maturities coming due. We did have a bond that did mature on March 31st, and I did post to the Schwab account today for $1.15 million, along with approximately $12,000 in interest. So the cash balance as of today is $1,165,440.60. We also are showing a money market of $704,000. Going back to our presentation, there's a summary we put together here that I think does a nice job of just outlining some of the risk characteristics of the portfolio. By design, we put together a schedule of investments where you would have a bond that was maturing each month. I think our farthest maturity goes out to May of 2025. So this type of structure and investment portfolio allows a lot of flexibility in terms of money coming back each month in order to handle whatever cash needs need to be addressed at that moment. And then whatever's left can be plowed back and invested into the portfolio. Or there are some times when I reach out to John, he just says, okay, there's no immediate cash needs right now. Go ahead and invest. And then you have just a short window where another bond is coming. So if you can see the schedule here, you notice there's a bond coming due each month from, the end of April 2024 all the way out to May of 2025. And then just looking at some of the risk characteristics that we like to put together for any fixed income investment shows you things like average maturity, average duration. Basically, what you have here is something that has an average life in terms of you took the average of all the investments in the portfolio would come back to you in approximately half a year. And that was done by design again as well to minimize any type of duration or maturity risk. Markets at times can be somewhat volatile, but this portfolio is held very steady, given the fact that it is it's basically a customized money market fund for North Central Accountability. There's another slide here that we put together that basically does a nice summary of showing you what was incepted in terms of proceeds for investment at inception date of April of 2023. We had approximately $2 million of investments, a little over $4 million of withdrawals. Expenses were under $50,000 for the year, and we're showing that $371,000 of income was earned and paid into the portfolio. Now I want to talk a little bit about this decrease in market portfolio of just below $526,626. You might wonder, why are we showing an increase in market value of the securities when, I don't want to go too fast here. If we go back to the first page, what you're going to notice is a slight unrealized loss in the portfolio. Making the connection here. So all the investments, when these bonds were purchased at a discount. These maturities mature at a market price of 100. But in the current environment we're in this part of the yield curve, these bonds are all purchased below 100, some as low as 98, 97. So what's happening is that purchase price of 97 or 98 or 99 has to move towards 100 so that when it matures off, you get the matured value price of 100. So at the same time, what's happening is there's an accretion schedule attached to each one of these bonds for our friends at the IRS, so they would be able to track any kind of gains or losses if we would sell the bond prior to maturity. So according to the accretion tables, the value of the bond is still lower than where the accreted value is. Now it gets a little technical, but that basically just means you have a higher accreted value being matched up a lower market value, generating the unrealized loss. However, the reason we show an increase in value is because since these bonds were purchased, we began the process in April of 2023. They have all moved closer to that value of 100, a dollar price of 100 per bond. And so if the portfolio was liquidated today, you would actually be able to book, for tax purposes, a loss. However, you would still get $426,000 of increased value in the bonds that you hold. So I'll stop right there if anybody has any questions. I know that was a lot in terms of the interworkings of bonds and dollar prices of bonds and how they move toward maturity. John, did you have any questions? Okay. So I think I'm sorry.
Can I ask, because I know I was talking to Jamie about this in past, our funds were just in the public consulting group portal, and the example I was able to give Jamie is in 2022, we realized an interest of about $54,000, but we didn't have that same split between the two as you do now when we're looking at treasuries. So one question I would have is for Jamie and you, for our organization, what does this mean in like increase in income or decrease in income? Is it easy to say that you add the 371 plus the 426 and that's your actual realized income?
Correct.
That's right. I would call it total return, but yes, for all intents and purposes, because if we buy a bond at say 97 and it matures at 100, that as well as the periodic interest payments you get twice a year, both of those are income to you being earned. It's just that what happens here when you take a snapshot, you've got about 14 or 15 different line items of bonds doing their thing from purchase date to maturity. And I just wanted to be as detailed as possible to break it out exactly what's coming back to you in terms of returns.
So if you think about it, when you buy a bond, we're holding these to maturity. So if you're not breaking that bond early, or I don't want to say taking a penalty, but taking it before it matures, you're going to get that whole growth. So from 97 to 100. So just say $3 per bond. So that's that part where that increase decrease happens. So $3 on each bond on $1 million is $300,000. Well, $3,000 when you get that whole total in there. That's where you're getting that $426,626. But you're also getting the interest while it sits there every 6 months. So when you add the whole portfolio of the 19 million or the 18 million that's in there, you have the interest that it's earning plus the growth at maturity. That growth part doesn't happen until that bond matures. You don't physically see it. So these are those bonds that are coming every single month. When they mature, it's actually realized. So when you compare that 54,000 or whatever, that 55,000 that John sent me for last year in 22 that you made, that was your realized growth compared to the 700,000, almost $800,000 of growth in 2023.
Moving along to the rest of the report is just a summary. If you wanted to take the time, you could see how this all comes together, seeing all of the bond purchases, what it cost to buy them, when they were paid, when they came back. I've also listed the maturities so we can see where the bonds have come back and matured into the portfolio. So, in terms of cash management, I feel this has been very efficient, very effective. And it's just very fortunate that you are able to have the scale that you do with the business and the operation that you're running. And we can go ahead and do this on an institutional basis. I mean, we can get in and manage this in a way that, in my opinion, I think a typical advisor could handle it, but I think it would be very much more difficult. So what you really have here is your own personalized cash management portfolio for the organization. If anybody has any questions, I'll make a brief comment. You might look at this and say, some of these rates that we got in look pretty good. In a nutshell, I know we all get inundated with financial comments about the Federal Reserve and what are they doing and what are they cutting and are rates going up, are they going down, and what's happening. Just today, some economic data was released that indicates that the market now gives June, it's below 50% probability that they'll cut rates in June. My thought, just looking at everything and all of the data that's been released and watching what's going on day to day, I think the environment or the rates that you have enjoyed in this particular cash management portfolio will continue for some time. Governments, personal spending and the consumer makes up approximately 70% of GDP of the economy, and that has been slowing down. So there's been some progress there, but a big chunk of that remaining 30% is government spending, and unfortunately we're running into some annual deficits of over $1 trillion a year. So that type of spending requires additional. It's going to create a situation where inflation may not get to where the Fed wants it. When we think that happens, it's moving in that direction. So directionally, that's fine. But looking day to day at the technicals within the bond market, there's more and more paper being issued by the U.S. Treasury. Those two together are good for you because I happen to think that the rates on the very short end, the Fed funds rate is at 5.5. We started this process. I think a lot of the yields that we were able to get are somewhere around a 4.80. They moved up into 5%. The gross return for the year is just over 5%. So we've been able to take advantage of that. These yields will move around, in and around that, 4.85% area. But but because there's some headwinds in terms of bringing inflation down to their target range, I can see that these short-term investments will still show good value in terms of yield versus other options out there in the market. I just wanted to point that out because, you know, one of the things that we've suffered through for since 2008, 2009 was very, very low short-term rates. And just to summarize, I believe that this is going to be something that the short-term rates are going to be something we could take advantage for a while. I think it's going to be longer than most people anticipate.
Any questions from the board on the investment work? Jamie, anything else from your side that you want to share with the board?
No, I think what Michael said sums up everything that we've done. We rely on him to pick the right treasuries that are out there, and we meet once a month to discuss them.
Well, then I just wanted to thank both of you. Go ahead, Manuel.
Just from a governance section, I don't have any questions on the report. Do we have an investment policy that outlines our risk levels and what our intent is? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And we can share that back out with the board as well, just so you guys have access to it.
Yeah, Michael has that as well, so we have to follow that strictly.
That's confirming that as well.
Well, I want to thank Michael and Jamie for joining. I know Michael is doing this from like East Coast time, correct?
That's right.
Michael, so it's a little different. It's a little later where he is at, but for me, they've been a valuable resource in talking through the investments, just kind of keeping track of where things are going. I appreciate the updates on the market and the direction of the market. So if there's ever a time we have to rethink or reconsider that, we'll be able to plan ahead instead of when it's occurring as well. And it's been, you know, the way that we've laddered and done the structure has been very good for us to be able to keep our funds invested and actually, as Jamie, I think you've told me, more of a secure location than having those in a bank account. So it's been really nice for us to be able to take those funds and make more out of them so that we can do more and better work for the members in our community. So I want to thank you both for joining. We'll probably continue on this cadence of doing an annual or maybe less frequent. We'll see how the board feels presentation just to make sure that we're keeping them up to speed. But especially 1 year into it, we really wanted to ensure the board was aware of the outcome of the decision they made last April. So thank you both.
Anytime you let us know. Thank you.
Perfect. And then Linda, we'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, and I am now turning it over to Manuel for governance committee items. And we have 2 action items.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. So yes, as Linda had mentioned, there are 2 action items that were included in the board packet that will require formal board vote. So I'll start with the first one. So we, as a governance committee, have had Lori Bergman joining us for the last couple of meetings, just to kind of see if it's an area that she wants to participate in. She has indicated an interest, and the governance committee does not have any objections to her joining the committee. But per our structure, we need to bring her this to a vote to the board to formalize her participation in the governance Committee. So we have basically, I'm assuming, John, by the fact that we have a board action, is this an official motion or do we need to motion and second?
I think this is an official motion, and then we need to get a second.
All right, so this is the official motion in front of you of electing Lori to the governance committee. So I'll look for a second.
I'll second. It's Rosalinda.
Thank you, Rosalinda. I guess I can call the vote, John. Every organization is
Go
different.
for it.
All right.
I was
I
thinking
think
Linda
I
would.
froze. I froze, didn't I?
Yeah.
Right when I asked for a second.
So Linda, you call it. I think it's in your purview to call for or to finish off the motion. There's been a
Okay.
motion and second.
Okay, thank you. It is moved and seconded to approve Lori Bergman's nomination to the governance committee. All those in favor say aye, please. Aye.
I,
Opposed, nay. Okay, hearing none. Motion carried.
Thank you, Linda. The other action that we're bringing to the board is election of a new member. His information was included in the packet. Mr. Emilio Vela had was nominated, indicated interest in joining our board. He did meet with the governance committee, and we are bringing his nomination forward, recommending that he be approved to join the board. So, Linda, I will present this as our official motion to elect Emilio and go from there.
All right, we'll try this again and see if I freeze. Do we have a second?
I will second. This is Nancy Spurgeon.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Nancy. It's been moved and seconded to approve the nomination of Emilio Vela to our board. All those in favor say aye.
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 Right, opposed, nay.
Linda, can I just put a discussion point in there, please?
Absolutely.
I just want to say that folks that are coming our way just have amazing, we've had some amazing interviews in the governance piece, and pretty excited to have the new folks on board.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Emilio is on with us. Welcome, Emilio.
Yeah, Linda, I was going to ask him to just give a brief introduction to those who haven't had a chance to meet him and welcome him to the board.
Thank you. It's sort of like riding a bike. I am a recovering addict. I have a lived experience. Also, I am a family migrated around the country, and they settled in Moses Lake. And my dad bought our first home back in '67, close to Peninsula Elementary. Moved to Wenatchee a little bit over 4 years ago, right when the pandemic began. Was in long term till about a little bit over a year ago. I decided that it was time to kind of create a little bit of a career change, and I have not regretted a moment ever since. In August of this last year, became the executive director for Communities in Schools, which is a national nonprofit that is in 28 states and with 14 affiliates in the state of Washington, with a state association, but also North Central Washington Communities in Schools became an affiliate effectively almost 2 years ago, July 1st of 22. I joined them last August. I'm pretty excited about that. My wife is bilingual education teacher, and to the joy of many and not too many cougars, I am a Husky at heart, and I like Wenatchee for that. Wenatchee is very receptive to Huskies. So I enjoy that. I am a grandfather of two, a 7-year-old Mila and Riley, who are hanging out with us this week, do spring break, and I have a a daughter who is a director of a chemical dependency treatment in Shelton, Washington, lives in Olympia, and a son who is the regional manager for Dollar General. A lot of stores everywhere around here. We love it here, and really excited to be here. Before joining this board, I was with Liz Baxter and North Sound, Accountable Communities of Health, and worked in DSHS for 22 years in behavioral health. And I love the recovery navigators and the recovery work that you are doing. And I am very impressed with the behavioral support systems that you develop and the way the community is connected, and proud to be part of it. Thanks for welcoming me on board, and really looking forward to, to doing good work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilio. And that is all from the governance committee, Linda.
Some thanks, Manuel. Governance committee's been up to some work since we met. Okay, strategic goals. Sorry, I'm used to using the phrase plan. Strategic goals update, John and Caroline.
All right, I'm gonna lead through the presentation, and Caroline is gonna jump in with all the correct details and facts. But really, we've been sharing with the board our strategic goals, and then since we've developed them, is really to start looking at outcome metric and tracking associated with those goals. And so we've been working in partnership with our team, and then Carolina spent some additional time refining them. And so today, what we are sharing is really kind of that next phase or iteration of what things we're primarily going to be starting and or tracking associated with our 3 key strategic goals and our priorities. Before I do that, as I see Joey writes, thanks, Emilio. I do also just want to give a great shout out to the governance committee. The conversations we've had, spending the time to interview potential board members, I think continues to bring value to the quality of members we want to put on our board, and the intentionality behind that. So again, thank you all for doing that. Thank you all for the evaluation of the bylaws, and I think it's only making our organization stronger. So again, I wanted to do that shout out. But flipping back, really our vision is really all people and places in our central region feel like they're thriving, no exceptions. So a few ways we are really going to be tracking that at the resident level is going to be that primary data collection point in the well-being survey. And I know Mariah and Veronica will be sharing some more details of the survey rollout later, so I won't get into that, as well as we've rolled out the IP3 dashboard and looking at those vital condition metrics across our counties. Some of that data collection, all of that will help us understand how our residents are doing and how are we moving some of those metrics. But the work that we really do associated with improving the well-being of residents is working directly with those partners in our region to get them to improve their collaboration, to get them to improve how they develop their systems, focus on how they are engaging their communities in the decision-making process, to really then in turn help them better deliver services to the residents or participants in our region. And so the way that we really look at measuring our progress is how are we measuring against that ultimate goal or those ultimate objectives of shifting that change for the community organizations that we work with in the region. So if you switch to the next slide. Just another thing to kind of keep in mind or focus on is, as we've adopted the vital conditions in this idea of thriving, really the other aspect that we're really looking at is how we're moving from downstream interventions and support upstream prevention work. And so, I think we all going to recognize that there is always going to be a component there that focuses on the downstream, but there's always going to be individuals that are in need that we're going to continue to support. There's always going to be interventions in that midstream to engage people who, even if the conditions were appropriate, still are at risk of going into crisis, and we want to work with them prior to that happens. But we also want to acknowledge the fact and focus that, you know, until we really create an environment where people can thrive, we're going to continue to create individuals that are struggling and suffering. And so we really want to get into this habit of trying to look even at our work and see what percentage of our work is moving more upstream versus downstream. And, you know, we don't have it on here today, but one of the things we're always going to be considering and evaluating, even within our program and our engagement work, is ensuring that we have a good balance in our portfolio of both vital conditions upstream work as well as downstream work. We're never fully going to get out of that downstream component with the partners we work with, but we really want to shift more of our work upstream. Next slide. So this slide really just kind of gives you a sense of how to start developing some of those strategy, tactics, and measures impacts to really get us there. So what are we doing to address the root cause of these things, improving the community, before we end up having to shift more to that downstream, addressing family and individual needs and responding to crisis? And what are the kind of tactics we can start building into our systems, into supporting our partners, into the collaboration work that we are doing to really develop really more of those upstream population health type measures and outreach. So you can just see up here, like, kind of ways to think about what are some things we can focus on more to support upstream work, what are some of those things that will be midstream, and what some of those things that will be downstream as well. You know, a good example of the work that we are doing in the recovery community is, you know, we are engaging individuals who've already gone through that crisis, but they may be now in that recovery effort, and we're trying to keep them and get them in a path where that's more sustainable, move them more upstream instead of preventing them from, again, ending up back into addiction and into crisis. Next slide. And this slide just really reviews those 3 key priorities we have as an organization. So really leaning into those vital conditions and that vital condition network that we are building as part of the Stewardship Council. Looking at how we collect and report data as part of the Shared Measurement Task Force, leaning into belonging and civic muscle, and how are we really leaning into advocacy efforts to create a space of belonging? How are we really building capacity of those organizations that are normally not able to be part of this work, so that they have the opportunity to invest in upstream work, be part of the decision-making process and how solutions get developed? And then how are we also developing systems of care to support collaboration across this effort? The other thing I would share as well as just kind of a note to keep in mind is that even in that 3rd priority, one of the values we found out of the original waiver is our clinical connection and our community connection, and really being one of those partners that can help interweave and develop that system of care across partners. One of the work we're really going to be doing around the social care network in the 2nd waiver is really focused on that. So even as we move upstream in our work, with the work that we do in partnership with the state, we really always are going to be playing a key role in how we develop those systems of care really across the continuum of care. And that's why it's really a priority, and that's why it's going to continue to be a priority as we move forward into this work. So you go to the next slide. So when we spent some time looking at measures we could really track underneath those 3 key priorities, we started to look at what are those really cross-cutting measures that we are trying to move and focus on across the priorities, that they may look different or we may collect them slightly different depending on the priority focus, but really they all attribute and roll up to these key focus points. And so you can kind of read down those bullets. So increased number of partners engaged into Thriving Together's network. So one of the things we're really looking at is how are we engaging people and moving people along under this vision of belonging and civic muscle, shifting to really thinking about well-being and thriving in the vital conditions, And so one of the ways we can do that, and we're looking at really doing that across all priorities. So one of the ways we can do that is to see the number of partners that are really engaging into our networks and into our efforts. If that didn't resonate with them, we would expect that more people would drop off. If that's really resonating and our messaging and our work is really shifting those mindsets, we would continue to see an increase in networks. Overall, just an increased collaboration across partner networks. So even outside of our network, what we are hoping to see is just an increase in collaboration. One of our, again, when you think of one of our theories of change in our mission statement, we are assuming that increased collaboration, increased belonging, increased equity is really going to improve those systems of care. And so in reality, what we want to see, at least we want to be able to measure, is that collaboration is occurring so that we can demonstrate that that is also improving quality metrics. Increased capacity of partners to improve health and well-being is something that also cuts across the 3 priorities. And really the focus around that is how are we, again, looking at engaging those partners that we know are community driven and really need to be part of this work, but also need support to build capacity to be part of these discussions and be able to have the systems in play to really track and demonstrate that they're making the outcomes that we know they're all making, but they don't always have the systems to do. And then the last, again, focusing on increased well-being and a sense of belonging. And how are we measuring and looking at really that increase that partners really are engaging and demonstrating that our community has an increased sense of well-being and belonging. And Caroline, I'm going to pause and see, based off of anything I've shared, what other comments or thoughts do you think are vital for the board to hear?
I don't think I have anything to add, John. I'm happy to chime in if board members have a question about anything that you've shared.
Okay. I think that we'll run through and then we'll get to questions, and I'm just going to have Mariah go to the next slide then. So we'll share this out after the board meeting, but this just gives you a sense of, as we're looking at each of the priorities, what are some of the key measures that we're looking at, that we're planning on collecting, and whether we believe that they're process or system outcome measures. What I would say is this will turn into, as you see in the bottom right, a few of these will turn into partner surveys. So those really measures that we think are important to collect and make sure that we're measuring as an organization. We are going to start being more proactive to also survey partners, either through reports that we collect or engagement or interactions we have through work groups and other meetings. We're going to be looking at a way to do it that's reduces that survey burden, but makes it just part of the culture and the work that people do with us. Again, we view them as a priority, so we want to make sure that those key measures and data collection points we have really built into the work we do. And you can go through next slide, Mariah. And this gives you a sense of a few of those metrics in priority 2. The ones that are highlighted, those ones that really roll up as those cross-cutting priorities cross-cutting measures across the different priorities. And next slide, Mariah. And again, you'll see that again built into priority 3. Ultimately, what I would say is this is really going to be our starting point in measure collection for this work. We feel like we needed to really start to get to a point where we had a few key things identified that we can start collecting. And then once we get that work going, we can continue to go through our own PDSA cycles to figure out, are these metrics hitting the mark? Are there adjustments we'd ever need to make in the future? But really, we wanted to get a starting point in how we really collect this work and measure what we're really doing in trying to increase collaboration, change the way people do their work in a community-driven fashion. And we recognize that there's, it's not like a project you always do, especially one that you directly engage patients or residents in, where you can track the outcomes perfectly clean. This is a little bit messier work, and it can be harder sometimes to figure out what those appropriate metrics are. And so this is really, after discussion and evaluation, this is our starting point. And throughout the course of the year, we'll evaluate any adjustments or changes made to this. We'll also be continuing to bring updates back to the board as we collect these for your guys' feedback. So with that, I would open it up to any questions. And if none, again, we will share these out with the board. If you read through this, or if you have a passion behind this work, or in this specific scope of looking at metrics and outcomes and tracking, you not only have to reserve that to board meetings, we are happy to meet with you outside of board meetings to discuss, get input on any of the things that we are doing. So please read through it, reach out and schedule time with us, and we can dig into it deeper as well.
All right. We are running about 15 minutes ahead of schedule. That's always good. We have a break built in. So John, do you want us to go ahead and take our break now? Okay. We'll break. It is 3:15 and we'll come back at 3:20. As everybody comes back on.
I can give them a minute or two, but
Absolutely.
if you are on Wave or Signal or something, so we know you're there. Thanks, Nancy.
Right, Carlene's on. Carlene, are you still in Hawaii?
I just drove in today.
Okay.
From Hawaii?
Yeah. Both Kona and both the Big Island and Maui this last week.
I don't think any of it's really vacation, man. Also, I don't know. I get super jealous of her.
All right. Well, Veronica and Mariah, tell us what's happening with the well-being survey update.
Good afternoon. So Mariah will share the slides and I will give a brief update on the Wellbeing survey. So good afternoon and thank you for your time as we provide a quick update on the team's Wellbeing survey efforts and future community dialogue opportunities. Next slide. So as you know, our data director, Sarah Bates, has been working with the Shared Measurement Task Force in an effort to measure well-being across the region. They are using Cantrell's ladder to better understand those communities who are either thriving, struggling, or suffering. Next slide. So while the data team is working hard to move the well-being survey into action, I've been working directly with the Stewardship Council in an effort to put into practice the network change model within our partner agreement. So the three levers within this network change model include convening diverse stakeholders for shared understanding, learning, and action, measuring and tracking well-being, which is what we're focusing on today, and identifying and advancing those opportunities for collective action. So speaking of measuring and tracking well-being, I want to emphasize that Gallup has been utilizing Cantrell's ladder to measure and track thriving trends for quite some years now. The graphic here illustrates the trends in percent thriving by large racial and ethnic groups, and you can see the impact that COVID-19 had specifically within the nation's Asian population. So we were recently provided this slide at our at the joint meeting that John was referencing earlier during today's meeting, which was last Friday, and we thought it was pretty relevant and informative, so we decided to include it in today's slides. So as we roll out the Wellbeing Survey this spring and summer, we are simultaneously working on establishing a work group that will help convene communities across the region for what is known as community dialogues or community conversations. We have a few partners that have already put this approach into practice with their strategic planning process, and others who are looking into implementing it. So I'm excited to collaborate and see how these efforts come along. So community dialogues are aimed at deciphering what's true for others, sharing what's true for you, and discovering what we have in common. And our goal with community dialogues is to dive a little deeper into the results of the Wellbeing Survey by asking specific questions to those communities who suggested they are thriving, struggling, or suffering. We want to better understand why certain communities are suffering, and for them to identify the reasons behind this, make sense of their needs. And on the flip side, we also want to know and learn from those communities that are thriving too, and understand what are the factors that prevent or enable certain groups to either thrive or suffer. Next slide. So this is just a quick timeline of our efforts this year. As I mentioned, include the survey rollout, community dialogue trainings, the community dialogue conversations themselves, and a fall summit that we are hoping to bring all of these findings together and share out regionally towards the end of the year. Next slide. And as we engage with partners across the region, we've identified these opportunities for collaboration and support. We've asked partners to share our communications about the Wellbeing Survey efforts and community dialogues. We have also asked partners to assist with community outreach and survey engagement, and we've also made a call for community dialogue support, which include the initial work group that will go through the dialogue trainings and help create those initial questions that will be aimed at diving deeper into the data. Next slide. So a huge thanks and shout out to our communications manager, Morgan. We're able to provide partners with a toolkit that will help partners help us out during the rollout. So the toolkit will include social media posts, material with QR codes that partners can post throughout their lobbies and places of work, email templates for partners to quickly copy, paste, and send out both internally and externally to partners and throughout their networks. The partner toolkit will be available to partners by our virtual launch of the survey, which is taking place via Zoom on Tuesday, April 30th at 10 a.m. Registration details were provided in our March newsletter, and I encourage any of you to join and learn more about our Wellbeing Survey and community dialogue efforts if you're available. And with that, I'll wrap up this part of today's agenda with just a quick recap of our, next steps. As I mentioned, we will have the Wellbeing Survey kickoff webinar at the end of this month. We continue to recruit for our community engagement work group and upcoming dialogue trainings, which we hope to initiate later this spring. And I'm happy to answer any questions or welcome anyone on the team if I missed sharing something. Thank you.
I did share the registration for that April 30th webinar in the chat if anyone would like to join us at 10 a.m. on April 30th.
The one thing I'll share too, and the nice thing you saw on the graph that demonstrated Cantrell's ladder measurement is you can see that this data has been collected over time and is being utilized as a measurement tool. So even though we've had a number of discussions with partners, even though when you're asking someone where they are on the ladder, we are asking them for more of that subjective how they view thriving is. That's an important step in this process because one, we want to ensure that we are getting people to a place of thriving, and we want to make sure that we're supporting them to do that not based on what we think they need for thriving, but what we find out our communities need to thrive. And two, it shows that this data has been tracked and used and measured. So even with that method, it has been used as a quantifiable way of looking at how do we pinpoint and find those locations in those communities that are struggling, suffering, and thriving. The other ask I would put out there that Veronica didn't, is that if we'll share this out, if anyone knows places we should be at in the 4-county region or partners we should engage with, encourage you to share that back with Veronica and Mariah, because the more we can get out there and the more we engage, the better. So share that information out there. Veronica's collecting it, Mariah's collecting it, and I know the team is actively looking at ways to get out there both themselves and through partner organizations.
Okay. Any questions, comments before we move on? Thank you, Veronica and Mariah.
The only other thing, and I'm sorry, I really do want to give a shout out to Morgan, Veronica, Mariah, and Teresa, because I know Sarah's gone on maternity leave, and in her absence, those 4 individuals have really taken this on, and really done this work and is bringing this to through to the rollout, and I've just been really impressed by those 4 and the work that they've done to take this on, even though they were stepping in kind of near the end of this rollout. So to the 4 of you, I just really want to say thank you for all this work. It's been amazing. And it's, for me, the nervousness of having Sarah go on maternity leave, I know they feel nervous sometimes about it, but it's made me feel very, very good and have a lot of trust in this role.
Thank you all. Okay. Turn it over to Mariah for DEI competencies, our equity update.
Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. I apologize that this document was missing from the packet, so I don't think I can take up, get us back on track by spending too much time on this, but I did want to go through and share a little bit about this document, and we'll make sure that we email board members after this meeting so that you can have this. So you may be familiar with the original document. We actually, Karen Francis McWhite shared this with us. The Washington State Department, I believe, was it Commerce? I can't remember. That originally created this framework of the state of Washington, just the state of Washington. And it was something that the DEI committee looked over and felt like this can be really helpful as a framework for employees and future employees during the onboarding process, especially in creating and continuing with our DEI goals that each employee has. And so we actually took this, and I give Caroline all the credit. We took this tool and tweaked it a bit to make it our own. And so you'll see we've put our own, we've inserted in that 3rd paragraph the kind of our own equity statement that we are also, we've incorporated that into our employee handbook, and recently just added that. And then it goes down through here. I'm going to just scroll down beyond this graphic here. So there's 5 different areas in DEI competencies, and so you'll see here that Caroline went through, and some of these links actually link to resources in our region and things that we've offered, and just really makes it a lot more easy to sift through than our current file structure that has all these resources in a folder in SharePoint. That's just, you know, this is a really handy guide to put it in this framework. So that is done for each of the DEI competencies. So we have the knowledge, understanding, and commitment, self-awareness and commitment to growth, cultivating mutually beneficial and trusting strategic partnerships, inclusive excellence and allyship, and measuring for success and improvement. So each of those has, as you can see here, specific links that link to things that we've either done or that we support. And so again, apologies that this document was not included in your packet. I will make sure that it does get sent out to folks so that you can take a look at that. And we did share back with Karen, and she was really pleased. At our last DEI meeting, we showed her how we kind of took the document and made it our own, and she was very happy that we did so, and actually has shared that out with other organizations that she's been meeting with as a just an encouragement to really, you know, take the tools that she's provided and make them more applicable for each individual organization. Do you have any questions or any questions for the equity committee as a whole?
For us, I think, and one of the things we committed to, sorry, I was calling Tona quickly to see if we could get her on a little earlier, Mariah.
You're way ahead of schedule for our partner spotlight. So we welcome many questions after John shares this comment.
You know, we've planned to ask with the competencies to have each team member really go through it and identify what individual competency for next year they can work on as a goal. Last year in 2023, we just asked staff members to identify a goal, focus on equity that they could work on. We didn't have any parameters behind it. We just said, you know, challenge yourself, stretch yourself a little bit. But really, we just want you to engage, educate, and grow into this space. And it honestly, I thought everyone did a great job leaning into it. And, you know, I even had a few individuals who did a number of additional goals and really put some focus on it. So, and we've had a great space where the team is able to have conversations and share about this. So this was just a really nice next step to use a more formalized tool and really start to continue to build it into our organization and start looking at too how, you know, management can support tracking of that work as well. So I want to give a shout out to the team, Mariah, the equity committee, for really getting this stuff together. Sorry, not a question, just a comment.
It's all good. It's good work. Okay, I'm going to skip until they join us. Is that all right?
Yeah, if folks would like to do like a roundtable, or if you're planning that for the end, we could definitely do that now. We're going to try to get them, see if they can join earlier than their calendar invite. I'll work on that right now. Thank you, Linda.
No worries. That's what I get for a meeting that's running a little faster. So we're going to skip to the next part of our agenda, and hopefully they'll join us soon. Do we have roundtable, any news board members would like to share or comments that you'd like to provide today?
You know, I'm gonna pick on Joey. And Joey, I know at your award ceremony, Ray was also there receiving an award. So can you share any details about what Ray received as well, so that board members have the ability to congratulate him?
Yeah, he he got the same award I did, and his was based on his work with EMS and also like really being active in the community and participating in community stuff. They didn't really go into a lot of detail on it, other than what I shared.
Anybody else out there?
I thought I'd share a picture in the chat. That's Haleakala volcano at 10,000 feet 2 days ago at sunset. If you've never been to Maui and National Park.
Wow.
Beautiful photo.
Overlooking Kihei and Lahaina.
Thanks for sharing that, Carlene. I've been to Maui, but I did not go on Haleakala, so I'm thinking if I go back, I will have to do that.
It is definitely worth the drive.
Wow.
Maybe since
Question. Oh,
go ahead, Veronica.
I actually have a question that's relative to the well-being survey, and I'm gonna pick on Manuel. I wanted to ask who your current outreach coordinator is, just because we want to be really intentional about reaching our ag community, and I know that CBCH goes out to ag camps with CDHD. They have a schedule, an outreach schedule that they usually go off by. So I was just wondering if we could tag along and possibly help survey some of our ag folks this spring.
Yeah, Dulce Negrete is our clinical outreach manager right now. And yeah, they're getting ready to start planning all of the visits. So Dulce Negrete and Veronica, I don't know if I have your email or
I'll put it in the chat.
yeah, and I'll just email you back or give you an introduction.
Awesome. And I know those things.
Okay, yeah, I figured.
So Veronica, this is Nancy, and you may have already have some contacts at the college, but I'm wondering how the Area Health Education Center might be able to help with distribution of the survey on the college campus, and working with students on filling it out possibly. So maybe we want to talk offline about how we might do that.
Yeah, I know we briefly touched base on it during the Chi leadership meetings at the Merck. But I know that Sarah had originally talked to you and Jordan, but we haven't really dived into what that looks like. But I do anticipate that there is a way for us to collab and get students to fill out the survey. So I'll connect with you and Jordan.
Okay.
Schedule a meeting. Thank you.
Veronica and Mariah, can you remind me, I feel like this question came up last Friday about youth involvement in the survey. And did we ever get a full clarity? Are we looking to get youth surveys completed for the survey, or is this predominantly 18 or above?
So the questions are geared more towards those over 18, but there is an option on the survey for the age question. There's an under 18 option. So we're not excluding youth, or we're not asking folks 18 and older to do the survey. It's just there are some questions that are more like annual income, financial dependence in the household. And those questions are not required to complete the survey, but the language of the survey is geared more towards adults, if that helps clarify.
Yeah,
We need to do another youth
because of Linda's involvement in the ESD and even Nancy, a lot of the work they do, it gets into the high schools as well about potential utilizing them to help engage the youth.
And I'm wondering, Linda, you may be familiar with the Healthy Youth Survey that goes around that the local coalitions do. And I'm wondering if that data, I know that that's maybe not entirely similar, but we could look at for future iterations of this survey, because I foresee us doing this again, possibly having a youth specific survey. So it would be great to see kind of what questions are asked on that and how we can, you know, combine and maybe make a youth specific survey.
Absolutely. We have it for middle school and high school age, and I actually have access to the questions, the required questions as well as the optional questions. So that's easy.
Wonderful. I figured you'd be the one to talk to about that.
That's easy.
And Amelia, like, you may have some thoughts and ideas on it too. You know, I forgot you as a new board member, but as the executive director of community and schools, you're also actively in schools.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I was just clicked in my head, hey, I might know a few students. And we actually, for us, is having the vehicle through our site coordinators in the schools, in the 8 schools that we're currently in, to be able to access, you know, the youth and families and things like that. So absolutely, I was gonna read the details as you send that information out. And I can collaborate with you, Linda, as well.
And we have you on the list, Emilio, and I know Edgar joins the Many Voices One Region Diverse Leadership Work Group that Veronica and I will be presenting at on the 11th. A lot of folks in that group are just already out in the community, and we hope that we can get them on board for survey distribution. So we'll make sure to connect.
Absolutely. I will mention it to him as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, and we're planning, again, the launch date will be, the kickoff is April 30th. The launch will be May 1st. And we plan to keep the survey open through July 31st. And then at that time, we would like to, we'll probably, you know, we may not close it. We'll see kind of what we have with the data. And we're going to work with Seattle, King County Public Health, and get that data back, and hopefully in time for a October summit that we can share out with partners. The goal with this data is that, you know, this really is our community data. So we want partners to be able to use it, and it'll be shared on our website. I believe we shared about our IP3 reports that are in the data reports section on our website, and that's where these will go as well. And I'm really just looking at this data for future grant funding opportunities. You know, as folks are writing their narrative, they can use this data. And yeah, we really want it to be usable for our region. So it's Thriving Together survey, but it's really for the whole region, all of our partners. Thank you, Linda.
No problem. Those other two I mentioned in there relate to the wellness.
Has anyone had a chance to review the survey or the FAQ or the other documents that were in the packet? I know, Rosalinda, you shared with your board. How did that go?
It went very well. We're very excited to get that survey out in our communities here local to us. I think that data is just, we're so excited about it. So yeah, I want to get it everywhere that we can. There's 2 huge community events downtown that we're participating in that I think we're going to take the survey down there as well.
Thank you. That is so wonderful to hear.
Yeah, that's great. I also just want to make a call out. If you mentioned those two events, Rosalinda, if you could maybe just shoot me an email with some of those additional details. We're trying to find, other community events, especially throughout Okanagan and Grant counties, just because we're trying to be really intentional about the two counties that are often left behind. We tend to kind of hyper focus here in the valley, and just to see what other events are out there that we can table at and get more folks to fill out the survey. So if anybody
What's the
has
end
any-
date?
Well,
What's the end date on data collection?
We're planning on keeping the survey open through July 31st, or at least the push for data through July 31st, just with kind of the goal of sending off the data so we can aim for a fourth quarter sharing out on our website.
If we collect data after that point, what's going to happen?
I think we'll just keep it open. We can slice and dice the data as needed. And of course, if we are getting to a point where, we kind of have an idea of how many surveys we'd like. But I think we can definitely be flexible if there's events that are taking place after July 31st, of course. We've already shifted the dates. Originally, this was going to open April 15th, and the team was not prepared for that. And we were just going to keep it open until mid-June, but we decided through July, but we can certainly adjust the timeline or just plan to keep it open, and maybe that initial push, we won't have as much efforts, but we're open to as many surveys as we can get.
Well, the Grand Columbia is going to have a week-long table at the Grant County Fair in August. And we're doing the Be There campaign for the stigma campaign, the anti-stigma campaign. And so we could definitely have this there as well if you guys need us to.
That would be great. I think, yeah, the county fairs are a wonderful idea. Senator Warnick, I see you have a question.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, because I've got different setup today. So there's two events I would suggest, or actually, two. George has a big celebration on the 4th of July, and a lot of people set up. I've seen the fire department and others there besides vendors. So it might be good to have someone set up at George. Moses Lake has a big event Memorial Day, but I think it would cost quite a bit and take some time to be involved in that one. But on the other idea of Moses Lake is Big Bend College, Big Bend Community College. I know you mentioned the college. I assumed it was Wenatchee, but Big Bend's got a pretty active, administration there, so it wouldn't hurt to talk to them and about doing a survey.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm really jealous of Carlene. That's really cruel to send a picture like that.
Two other events for you might be we're doing Fire Strong workshops on the 13th of May in Okanagan and in Pateros on the 30th, Thursday the 30th of May as well.
Thank you.
Sounds like you may start needing volunteers to make it to all these events.
We welcome all the help that we receive. And we'll plan to keep the board informed as we go. Certainly, if you can join us for the kickoff webinar, we would love that. There will just be a little bit more shared at that time. And then we'll plan to update where we're at the next board meeting in June, and then of course share out when we have some of the data. So thank you all. And Linda, we are ready for the next part of our agenda.
Mute. This is also you, Mariah. I'll let you.
Yes, it is. I am pleased to welcome, thank you for being flexible, Tona and Maria. We have partners here from CAFÉ that are going to present on the Leadership Academy, which is a program that they've implemented now for a year. We funded this effort with the community-based equity initiatives funding that the board allocated that we awarded to organizations in 2022 and 2023, if you recall. And this is one of our projects. And so I welcome Maria and Tona to share with us a little bit about how it's going.
Hi, I'm Mariah. Could I share my screen?
Absolutely. You should be able to. If you're not, I can.
I can. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you for the invitation, Mariah, and hello to everybody on the board. My name is Maria Morales. And I am program manager at CAFÉ, and I know that Tona, our executive director, is also here. Hi, Tona.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. I am really excited to have Dr. Morales here to share what she has prepared to present today. This was an amazing program to provide opportunity for our community to really step out of their comfort zone as well, but also gain such valuable experience. And so that way they can better support their community. So thank you all so much for the opportunity. And I will go ahead and pass it back to Dr. Morales.
Thank you, Tona. Okay, so I'm going to felt more organized having a PowerPoint, tell you a little bit more about the Leadership Academy, but also speak to, as Tona was saying, some of the successes and some of the pieces that for us were really important part of this program. So Leadership Academy is, again, we are with CAFÉ, the Community for the Advancement of Family Education in Wenatchee. If you haven't come to our offices, we welcome you all to come visit at any time. We are right in the south part of Wenatchee, which is a really important part of the story of our organization. Just before I tell you about the Leadership Academy, so just a quick overview about CAFÉ, in case we need reminders or just to kind of situate the context. So CAFÉ is a nonprofit organization that advances family and community growth through education. We serve culturally diverse community in not just Wenatchee and the Chelan County, but in our surrounding counties as well. By providing opportunities in leadership, civic and social engagement, literacy development, and academic advancement. A big component of how we work is building alliance with regional partners such as Thriving Together. Thank you for the support to create a unified community that hopefully allows us to continue on this mission of empowering our community members. So the Leadership Academy this last week we finished, as Mariah said, we wrapped up our first cadre or cohort or group of leaders. And so this is the perfect time to speak to this. So the mission of this academy is to empower underserved communities by fostering leadership skills, facilitating professional connections, informing about community efforts, and amplifying the voices of youth and families through advocacy. Our hope with this program or this project at CAFÉ was that we would provide a space where Latina leaders can develop their skills as leaders and visionaries while enhancing their effectiveness as advocates for social change, policy impact, and community improvements. In other words, we're building seeds. To have this picture for us is a perfect metaphor of what we hoped for from the Leadership Academy. And I think as Tona said, I think now that we wrapped it up, we got a lot more from this program than maybe we envisioned. And so a lot of the folks that were identified in the process were already, I think, leaders in the community, in their communities in some way or another, but most were just sort of emerging leaders, interested in learning how to become more involved in the decision-making processes, specifically school boards or city councils. So the selection process was to identify emerging leaders in the communities. So because we serve Chelan County, we serve Douglas County, Okanagan County, and Grant County, our long-term goal. And then this cohort, there's some counties that we didn't get representation from, but we hope to be able to expand that as we continue on a second group. So how we identified leaders or participants in the program was either by attending community events. So before I came on board, a previous coordinator of this program, I know did a great job attending events, PAC meetings, parent action committees, and just also social networks. So like some people would recommend somebody else, right? Hey, this person is already really involved, I recommend them, right? So after identifying those leaders, they went through a process with CAFÉ. We got paperwork, also an intake, like what is your interest? What do you want to be involved in? They were given options of being involved in either school board or city councils. And so at the beginning of the stage, the participants decided one or the other, either because they were already attending those meetings or they were interested in learning. And so then the goal, the kind of vision of this was to develop them into leadership ambassadors. So this is what we call leadership ambassador program, right? For their respective communities. So that, again, planting seeds. So that the hope is that once they go through this process, they continue to get involved in those communities, continue to loop in other members of their communities, to teach others about the importance of being involved and being in these conversations, such as the conversations that are had at the school board level. So this cadre, right, that we just finished this last week, our leadership ambassadors for this group were these that I listed here in this slide. In Quincy, we had 4 amazing ambassadors: Jose Araceli, Iris, and Isabel. Wenatchee, we had 2, Adriana and Natalie. Also amazing, already super involved in various different projects. We had Yuriana from East Wenatchee. In Manson, we had JC and Ruby. And then in Peshastan, we had Guillermina. Now, our goal was to have a larger group of ambassadors, but it was kind of the first time. We learned a lot of lessons about just outreach. And there's also some challenges that we experienced with CAFÉ, with some staffing change that kind of also contributed to us not getting the full list. But I would say that this group of individuals finished really strong. They learned so much. I learned a lot from them. I think we learned a lot from them and their passion and their dedication to being involved. All of these folks are Spanish speaking at some level. Some are bilingual. Others were Spanish only, right? Though they had a little bit of a comprehension of English. A few of these, or about half of these, are considered immigrants, right? That they are Mexico, I think most of them are from that. About 3-4 of these folks are second generation Mexican Americans. And all of them, I think everyone but one has children or grandchildren in the schools. Most of them, I think it was a half and half, that came in saying, I want to do school board, and the other wanted to do the city council. But as they move forward, it turned out they just all were wanting to learn all the things. So several of them, many of them started participating in both, right? So again, the idea was to loop them in, to say, because some of them didn't even know, I think a handful didn't really understand how school boards worked, right? And like that it's something that's open for the community, right? And that we have a voice in these spaces, right? And so they went from that to finishing to a place of like, I know when we meet, I know that there's Zoom, I know if I have a link or go in person, I know that I can speak my story or speak the story of my community. I know that we have only 3 minutes to speak, and I better make it really great, right? And they practice actually in the classes they took with us. But I think so successful in many ways. This is not all the students. This is when we gave them certificates of completion last week. We had 2 again in Manson who weren't able to attend in person. And so just a little bit more about, so what did the learning sessions consist of? So Wilma Cartagena, a civil rights investigator with the Washington State Human Rights Commission, in addition to a lot of other hats that she wears, I know that she also serves on the board for the Wenatchee Valley College, and she's involved in so many different ways, not just in Wenatchee, but I think she has a lot of involvement in Spokane, where she used to live. But so she was the main instructor for the leadership classes, the leadership courses. So we would meet every week on Wednesdays. From 6 to 7:30 was the idea, but really we met from 6 to 8 because they just wanted to keep talking. And most sessions were a hybrid component. We had some folks on Zoom and some in person. Some sessions we asked to put people from Manson to make the drive, so that we could all be in person. The Quincy folks always wanted to come in person, so they even though it was still a drive, they still showed up. So some of the topics that were covered in the weekly sessions, leadership classes, included leadership styles, effective communication, advocacy fundamentals, conflict resolution. So Wilma presented either via Zoom or in person. Then we had some conversations, application applying the topics to the either the city council conversations that they were learning from, or school boards. So they're learning about themselves, doing a lot of self-reflection, like who am I as a leader and what kind of leader do I want to be and how do I become involved? And then there was also a lot of space in those sessions to then process and unpack the things that were being brought up in the conversations they were forming part of. So every other week Wilma would present, and then on the weeks that Wilma wasn't presenting, CAFÉ staff, so myself, since I came on board at CAFÉ in January, I took on this project. So I was the presenter on those weeks, or I would invite somebody else to come join, a guest speaker from the community or someone else from our organization. Some of the topics that we covered in those hours were navigating the future of education. So that was a panel with Maria Iñiguez, current board member of the Wenatchee School District, and Cindy Wright, the East Wenatchee School District. We also heard from other speakers, other members of the school boards. We also talked about Robert's Rules of Order, which a lot of us still are like, oh, I don't really kind of know much, but they're, a thing that is used, right? And a lot of people don't really pause and look at and study this. So the students really appreciated unpacking and really understanding. And even though they all still wondered who Robert was, they really appreciated that we went through it as kind of an introductory level, because there's whole books written about these rules, right? But they really helped them be better prepared, and that's the other objective of these presentations. Was we were hoping to give them tools so that when they do join those conversations, they were prepared to engage, but also they had better understanding of why things were happening the way they're happening, right? And why one person speaks and someone says this, and then there's a three. So that was the big goal for those presentations. We also went over goal setting. We talked about their qualities. It was really interesting, a session that I presented with them. All I wanted them to do was write down the skills that they have, the qualities that they have, their own interests. And some of them were like, we've never really actually been asked, what do we already bring to the table? And they really appreciated that. And they know that they're learning a lot, but even just having them reflect on all that they already know by just living the journeys and the lives that they've lived, right? I think that really was a good conversation. Okay. Like every program, of course, there's always challenges, right? And I think overall, like I said, it has been a wonderful time learning alongside these ambassadors. But we did go through some challenges, which, are just going to help us have a stronger cohort, a stronger cadre for the next round. Some of those challenges there were some staffing changes with the leadership at CAFÉ, the program coordinator who was running this program, took a different job. I joined. So that, of course, caused a little bit of a delay in some of the classes, and the students had to sort of relearn dynamic. And there was just a little bit of we slowed down just a bit. So that was one challenge. It was also difficult. Most of them really preferred in-person meetings, and we were still trying to figure out what to incorporate in the Zoom presentation, especially those that were presented by Wilma when they were in Zoom, because a lot of them are hands-on learners. So that was still a challenge, and I think all of us that've done learning on Zoom, continue to struggle with that. So it was a little difficult to maintain engagement through the Zoom format. Students really prepare to be in person, but it's also really tough because the folks in Panson, have kids and have lives. And so we're doing the best trying to work with all of those different experiences. Successes, in addition to what I just mentioned, while it's challenging to engage learners through Zoom, it also does allow, it's a little more accessible, right? Allow leaders in Manson and other communities that are far to participate, especially during the winter times. And so we were able to continue sessions every week. And I know the beginning, kind of the rough part of the winter, there was at least a few that were only on Zoom because it was just hard to drive. So it does allow for that, right? And our success is the ambassadors, like I said, most of them ended up participating in both school board meetings and city council meetings, and they wanted to learn from both. And I think that was just really incredible that they were passionate, committed, and they just wanted to keep learning. Many of the leaders have become involved in other community initiatives and projects, such as the Parent Leadership Training Institute. I think that's what PLTI stands for. It's a leadership institute with the Community Foundation of Northwest Community Foundation. Several of our ambassadors started participating in the organizing of this institute, and some of them are already they're interested in participating as students. But also other CAFÉ initiatives and projects have been really strong with outreach. And they just want to figure out how to continue to do their part to build community in their respective communities. I think that's the critical part about this program, is that it's that they are part of Quincy and that they will be planting seeds in Quincy and working with other leaders and developing other leaders in Quincy, for example. So just some ambassador feedback, and I could keep telling stories from the ambassadors. And also, it's also really important to note that I did mention some of the demographics. In terms of ages, we had, for example, we have Adriana, who's a grandmother and engaged and already involved in Wenatchee in so many different projects, but wanted to learn how to be a stronger advocate and stronger leader and figure out how to voice her concerns in an effective manner. We also had younger, so we had someone who's a student at Wenatchee Valley College who wanted to learn right, how to be a stronger leader, was participating in school board meetings and had her own reasons and passion for learning from those conversations. But so there's just kind of a range of that. Many of them talked about being really shy at the beginning. One participant said, I was really shy, but now I am confident. And as instructors, I think we really saw that. Like, it really took a lot to have her speak in class. And in the end, she was just very confident. Another one said that she was only a stay-at-home mom, which I'm like, oh, there's a lot to that. You're already a leader in that regard. But now I'm a leader. And she was just really proud of that. I mean, she's really proud that she was able to develop this other interest that she had, right? One ambassador talked about like how she didn't know about school boards, and now she's not only involved, but she's a president of the PAC in the Quincy School District. And I thought that was pretty incredible. And a lot of them talked about skills, and they've gained a lot of skills. They really appreciated Wilma's presentations on advocacy and what that looks like. And also some of the kind of technical skills and some of the just kind of thinking through how to communicate a message effectively in 3 minutes. So gain skills. This person said, I gained skills, helped me feel confident in school board meetings. I want to keep making a difference for my kids. So overall, even they were sad to wrap it up last week. But I know that at least for CAFÉ, we feel really strongly about we just feel that these are now more members of our outreach team and our advocates in the communities. And these are folks that we know we can tap into if we need to, do some outreach or to do some work in all these different communities. But I also feel really strongly about they're just going to make big difference in the communities that they are from. So yeah, that's it. Do y'all have any questions? And Tona, if you wanted to add something, please feel free.
Yeah, I know that this is just an amazing first start. And I know that with the changes that we went through with CAFÉ, that we have a strong individual who came on board that was really able to help kind of finish up this last portion of it. But I think it's important to state too that, like she said, that everybody was just so passionate about it. They didn't want to do just one of the, I'm going to call them programs, one of the meeting types. They wanted to really learn about everything. So we know that there are people out there that are so incredibly passionate about supporting their community, and tapping into these resources is initially how CAFÉ continues to grow. And it's a great model because you're not just supporting individuals in their community, but you are now creating a really strong base of individuals that you can tap into, like Dr. Morales said. And the fact that they're just, you can see their passion when they're at the office. I definitely get plenty of messages on my Zoom chat from them as well. So they're much more digitally savvy when it comes to using Zoom. And so it's been amazing to be able to see that growth and to see that confidence, and they're reaching out to not just me, but other members in our team, so that they can just also establish connections. And there are a group of people that love to come to our CAFÉ events just to be a part of it and to meet different partners. So it's been an amazing opportunity for all of us to have them now become a part of the CAFÉ team moving forward. And we are excited to see how we're able to continue to build this on, and then continue to bring in different resources that will be able to provide critical information about what leadership is in different aspects. So again, thank you so much for this amazing opportunity to be able to work with our community, make our community stronger in different aspects, and then to also fortify their want to be a part of our community as well when it comes to leadership programs, and everybody here on this call too. So thank you all so much for the opportunity. And I do see that John has his hand up.
Yeah, just two questions maybe. First, I'm curious, because it's amazing to see this, and just like it's impressive to see. I don't think everyone knows how amazing it is to get someone to just build those skills, be willing to go to school board meetings, go to city council meetings. I don't know how many of us here have even gone to a school board meeting or city council meeting. So it's amazing to see that. I'm curious, on the school board and city council side, how was engagement? What do you think was successful in their engagement? What do you wish you would have seen different? Was one question. And then, thinking ahead, how can community members help support you all in building these kind of programs and opportunities out? What are you all looking for in that way? And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, John. So the first question is how, if we saw them being engaged in the school board meetings or in the program?
Or just the school boards and the city councils themselves. What was successful in their reciprocal engagement back? What would you hope to see a little bit more of? And then second, how can we support and continue to support across the community in this kind of work?
I think that they were more engaged than maybe we envisioned, I would say. I mean, and I say that because it wasn't just that they were attending, right? So they were attending school board meetings. So again, they selected their own community district, right? There is Quincy School District, Wenatchee School District, right? And so they had that in their calendars and the tablets that we provided. So thank you, Tona, to also providing that, right? They also learned how to be a little bit more technologically savvy. So not only were they attending, right? So the engagement, I'm thinking as far as attendance and being and participating most of the time in person. And I think there are a few of the meetings that they couldn't, they would check in via Zoom, but it was mostly in person. But also many of them got to a place where they shared something and they spoke in those meetings. And yeah, I've been to school board meetings, and I've had lots of experience speaking in public crowds. And even then, I still would be super nervous about going up there. And so I think that to measure their engagement is not just the attendance, but the fact that they pushed themselves right past that discomfort. And many of them did share in their own respective meetings. They also were engaged as far as asking questions and kind of thinking critically about the space. So I know Quincy, for example, when they first came in, there were no interpreters, and they started asking questions like, where are the interpreters? And so they started opening that conversation on just like language accessibility, right? And so already kind of doing that work. And same with other ambassadors in their community. So I think that they were really involved and engaged. They also, I also saw that engagement in the weekly conversations. I mean, they would bring up topics that were discussed in the school boards, and they wanted to unpack them. So, and a lot of them, there's a lot to learn, a lot to know. So for example, with all that was going on with the Columbia Elementary School, a lot of them got really passionate and really engaged and had a lot of questions. They attended meetings. Folks from Quincy drove out here to show solidarity with the other people in Wenatchee, to attend meetings with them. Some people went to Peshastin to accompany an ambassador in a conversation she was going to have with the administration over there. So they were showing solidarity, right? And they were showing up for each other. But with everything going on with the Columbia Elementary School, there was a lot of questions that was coming up. And so they were like, wait, so how do schools get funded in the first place? Like, how does that? So then we would so that's the other part of the curriculum, was that we had these topics that we were set to discuss, but most of the time it was things that were emerging based on the questions and the needs that they had, right? So they were like, what are the different ways that they get funded, right? And what's a WAC code again? And so like, it was like, wait, let's go look at it. Let's go find out together. Let's read it. Let's read that together. So I think that all those things show that they engaged, they participated in the meetings and in the conversations, the topics that were being brought up in those spaces. And then to the second question, how can others support us? I mean, let's see. Well, we're always sort of looking for, because one of the missions of this program is to get our ambassadors to connect with leaders in our communities, to connect with, make professional connections. So if there's anybody interested in connecting and serving as a speaker and having a conversation, that door is always open. It's always available. Or if you have any projects, any leadership projects that maybe our leaders can be involved in, because now that we're done, all of them were like, what's next? What can we do now? And they all want to continue, and they're all going to continue. But if there are any projects, any initiatives, any conferences, or any just opportunities that you would say like, oh, this would be kind of a cool project to invite one of the ambassadors, maybe they can participate in it, or they could help organize it, or we can tap into their lived experience and their knowledge and their understanding. I think that's also another way. Tona, if you wanted to add anything else.
Yeah, I know I see Carlene, but I do want to say that it's been a conversation that me and Dr. Morales have been having, or thoughts that we've been kind of like, what are we going to do next? And I know that there are so many opportunities, but like she said, if there's any leadership opportunities for development in that way, I would love to see a model where we work with all of our partners, where we can do the first year and then maybe providing someone else to do the second year and continue to have them move up. I mean, it would be amazing to have them to provide that different opportunities that our community provides. And so I know that our conversations are basically, what can we help them do next? Because we don't want to just let them drop off and like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep going here. But, sometimes it's that push, like, what is the next step for them and how can we support them as just CBOs, that are just here to provide those opportunities to our community. So I do think it's important for all of us to continue thinking about what are the next steps for individuals that come through all of our programs, and maybe how can we continue to support in different capacities. And maybe it's going from leadership to something else completely, but they're still in that leadership development learning phase. So I think that we're definitely opening up the conversation to see what can we do next in collaboration with all of our partners found here and everybody else in our community. So yeah.
Yeah. Carlene?
Yeah, in terms of age, what is your exact age range? And are these some folks that would be good on boards that we have as local nonprofits?
Great question. I know that the youngest was early 20s and the eldest, I think she's in early 60s. So that's the range. And then I think the average were like mid 30s, I think is the average. Yeah, I think that's and then what was your second question, Carlene?
Well, just in terms of possible board participation as board members, we are definitely looking I know on several boards for some representation around this. And so I would love to speak with both of you later
Yeah,
about some opportunities.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Let's have that conversation, Carlina. I can think of, I mean, I think all of them would absolutely be great on boards. They, again, because of them participating in these meetings and then learning about these topics and also connecting with other leaders in other communities, I think that they have a really good understanding of kind of the needs of the communities they represent. But also, I mean, like Tona was saying, these folks, sure, they learned a lot of skills, a lot of things from us, but they already had a lot of skills and they had a lot of knowledge that they just didn't see as such, right? And so I think they just took kind of someone to say, look, you have an amazing ability to network and you're linguistic, like you have these skills, you just haven't seen them as skills. So I think it'd be great to provide opportunities for them to kind of sit and contribute to conversations. So yeah, Carlina, I'd love to have that conversation.
And Maria, I'd like to send you a couple of people who
Okay.
have been recruited on boards who don't have that confidence and are serving that role
Okay.
that I would love to send your direction as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Maybe Mariah, I could email or send our contact info.
So this is Nancy, and one of the things I was thinking too, because I do, besides this, I do a lot of early learning stuff and advocacy around early learning, and I'm thinking of talking with our state leaders and the elections that will be coming up and voting and all of those things, the kind of power that people that feel that confidence that you're talking about can have within their community to even get the vote out, not who to vote for, but get the vote out, right? Or speaking to legislators with certain topics that are important to them and finding the support systems to do that. So I think that would be a great next step too, as well.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Nancy. Thank you. I think that would be taking that next step to advocacy and a really important step. Thank you.
I do love that idea a lot. Definitely.
Veronica, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, first I just want to say thank you so much, Maria and Tonya, for all the work you guys are doing. It's amazing and it's ringing joy to my ears just listening that the Manson community is being involved and proactive in taking advantage of these opportunities. I'm from Manson and have just love to hear good positive stories come out of my community. But I also just wanted to take a moment. This is like full circle coming back, full circle moment, because right before you two joined, I did a quick presentation on the Wellbeing Survey and community dialogue efforts that we're rolling out. And I think the community dialogue work group would be a great opportunity for these ambassadors to take advantage of and perhaps get trained on hosting or facilitating community dialogue. And so we're having a training coming up later this spring. So I will keep both of you in my contacts so that we can connect and see how we can partner and have some of these ambassadors become facilitators for our community conversations.
Sounds great. Thank you, Veronica. I look forward to seeing that. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you all so much. It was great to be here. And for sure, we can continue sharing more. If you're curious, feel free to email us. We can go ahead and put our emails in the chats for you all. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Hey.
Linda, it's back to
They
you.
went fast. That's a tough act to follow. All right. I think we're just at any other comments that we'd like to share?
Thank you all for, I'll just say, bearing with the expedited agenda and time in between to get to the presentation. We really did want to share what CAFÉ was doing around the Ambassador and Leadership Program. So it was well worth the few extra wait. And it was great to give Veronica and Mariah an opportunity for you guys to start spouting off additional opportunities to engage in the community. So just thank you all for that. That's my only comment.
Hey, John, when's our next opportunity to get together in person? Do we just do that once a year?
Right now we're scheduled once a year, yeah, and so right now we're scheduled out in September. Correct?
Okay.
I'll look to Teresa to confirm that.
September 9th.
Are you asking because you would prefer to gather in person sooner than that, or?
Just, always nice to, I know I appreciated the opportunity to meet with Nancy in person last time we were there, so.
If a number of board members are interested, and hopefully Teresa doesn't come after me for making this comment, we could move our next board meeting in person. It does not have to be a retreat to do in person, but we could look at, or one of the upcoming board meetings in person. That would be June.
Like a hybrid model and host it in our office even, and because we know not everybody would show up, but do a hybrid model.
That's what I thought of too. Hybrid in our office with the option for Zoom call-in for those.
That way we're not paying thousands of dollars at the CTC or yeah.
As a new member, that would be awesome. Because you all look great and everything, but actually shaking a person's hand and getting to make the connection in person, and I have with many of you, I think will go a long ways to help me connect a lot faster with all of you in many ways. So I'm pro doing it.
So also I would say that as a partner with the Area Health Education Center, we can also use the college and not pay thousands of dollars for the CTC. So
that is good to know. I would like to add that to my list I'm making. So I will I will get a hold of you.
Okay.
When CTC is great, but it is in regards to location, not the cheapest version, and Wenatchee, so the more Teresa can continue to build up her list, the better.
CVCH has an awesome conference room in East Wenatchee. I've used it.
Yeah, I was trying to think, how big a group we
yeah,
might be able to get, but we could always use CVCH depending on the size.
Yeah, it's about the same size. Ours
Oh.
is what he tells me, but I haven't looked at it personally.
Yes, I'd be willing to.
I haven't heard any opposition to just going in hybrid in June. So if there is any concern, speak now. Otherwise, I would say we just make that switch and do it.
Okay.
Another just quick thank you to Commissioner Branch for joining. I still see him on. Appreciate you listening into the meeting and thinking about submitting an application for the board. We will not pressure you in the moment, but we'll follow up with you on it.
Yes, I appreciate it. I think I have a few things to share, so I'm pretty interested, and I would really be interested in meeting y'all in a real open person-to-person meeting.
Thank you.
And by the way, the leadership program is super. I wish we could get it spread out there a little further, especially in Okanagan County. It's just a great thing to be to have people come to hearings and make comments that are really relevant to what you're doing. It would really be a wonderful thing to see more people learn how effective a communication that really is for elected officials. So thanks for that.
Chris, I'm glad you shared that. actually this was the pilot year for the program, and they were going to see how it went and possibly expand. They're in currently in the Brewster area. But they were going to move up from Brewster and maybe go farther north in Okanagan County. So I will definitely share that with them. That would be great.
Yes, and I just share with you that I worked for several cities and towns in my career, and Bridgeport was one. And I always remember I was, a land use planner there, a community development planner, and the children were always there communicating for their parents. And now looking back at that, I can imagine how old they are now, and I'm running into young people that are working in stores and things like that, and they are really very good at it. I'm running into a lot of customer service people in Wenatchee that are young Hispanic people that are the best customer care people I have ever run into. So I think that just growing up and being their parents, advocates, and communicators was a really valuable thing for them.
So this is Nancy again, and not that we all want to travel a whole bunch, but I think it would be nice to sometimes have meetings, the hybrid type of meeting in different counties. And I think, we as the Area Health Education Center also work with Big Bend. So there could be potential to hold a meeting on the Big Bend campus. There could be up on the OMAC campus for Wenatchee Valley College. So I think there's some opportunity to think about some of those opportunities as well.
I can get us into other spaces as well. If we're ever in Grant, Moses Lake School District has a wonderful learning center and transportation building. And our building's always open. If the space is available, as Teresa sometimes knows.
Make sure you share. If anyone has space ideas, please send them to Teresa. She has a very good list started, and half time I send it to her, she already has it on the list. But as that grows, it's an amazing resource to know where you can hold meetings and what's available.
Yeah. Okay, so more to come on Manuel. I like it. More to come on our meeting space for June 3rd. We'll finalize that up. Any last comments before we adjourn? Okay. I'm told we don't need a motion to adjourn, so at 4:36, I'll adjourn our meeting.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.